Have you ever thought about this? That we are, in the end, alone. Born alone, and destined to die alone. That is the human condition. Perhaps these words sound too cold, too harsh, but when you really think about it, you realize they're not entirely wrong. We live surrounded by relationships. Yet in those decisive moments, we must ultimately face our battles alone. We want to lean on someone, but sometimes that very dependence comes back to us as a deeper wound. Is this feeling of being alone truly unavoidable? And if so, how should we navigate this solitude? If today's topic resonates with you, please subscribe and like this video. I'll keep bringing you content that truly understands your heart. These days, Korean society is facing a new social crisis called loneliness. In the past, loneliness was dismissed as merely a personal, emotional issue, but now it has become a phenomenon with serious impacts across all of society. What's particularly striking is that this loneliness appears in various forms across all generations, from youth to the elderly. Phenomena we see in the news, lonely deaths, social isolation, and hikikomori, starkly illustrate just how serious Korea's loneliness crisis has become. What exactly is making us this lonely? Why do people living together still end up feeling utterly alone? This question isn't unique to Korean society. Globally, as individualism deepens and digital technology paradoxically widens the physical distance between us, modern loneliness is growing ever more profound. Yet there are specific reasons why this loneliness problem is taken especially seriously. In Korea, the fragility of social networks, an overly competitive culture, and the anxiety individuals feel within rapidly changing social structures all combine to create this crisis. In fact, there are multiple intertwined causes deepening Korea's loneliness. First, the spread of individualistic values. As traditional communal culture weakens, and the emphasis on personal choice and freedom intensifies, people gradually become more indifferent to one another, and relationships grow disconnected. Pursuing personal happiness is important, but in that process, connections with others can loosen. A troubling side effect, the breakdown of traditional, extended family systems, and the rise of nuclear families, has also narrowed the safety net individuals can rely on. Second, economic hardship and polarization. Economic difficulty doesn't just mean material deprivation, as job and financial problems led more people to give up on marriage and relationships. Forming social connections becomes harder, and feelings of relative deprivation deepen the sense of loneliness. This trend has become especially pronounced since the 1997 IMF crisis. Skyrocketing housing prices, unstable job markets, and a relentless culture of comparison leave people feeling that economic burdens make it difficult to start new relationships or maintain existing ones. As the term "Inpo generation" suggests, referring to people forced to give up countless things for economic reasons. This reality only casts a darker shadow of loneliness. Third, the rise in unmarried and non-married populations. The statistic that over 50% of men in their 30s are unmarried for the first time starkly shows how Korean society is changing. As more people live alone, social isolation naturally intensifies. The idea that marriage is a choice has spread, and more people embrace singlehood. While we must respect individual choices, this also weakens social bonds. The social support networks, traditionally formed through marriage and family, are shrinking, leaving more people feeling isolated. Fourth, weakening family relationships. Rising divorce rates, value differences among family members, and generational conflicts are weakening even the most fundamental safety net. Family. Those who lack family support can fall into even deeper loneliness. Lack of communication between parents and children, estrangement among siblings, These bring profound feelings of loss and isolation. In modern society, even family members are often too busy with their own lives to care for one another properly. Fifth, the absence of social networks. Did you know that Korea ranks among the lowest in OECD countries for social network levels? The percentage of Koreans who say they have someone to turn to in times of need is significantly lower than the OECD average. In particular, young people's social trust levels are only half the OECD average. This weakened social network means we lack reliable support systems. This goes beyond simply having fewer close friends. It's a serious problem indicating a fundamental lack of trust and connection among members of society. The anxiety that social safety nets won't function properly when you're in trouble only amplifies loneliness. Lastly, the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic cannot be ignored. Social distancing forced relationship cutoffs, and the loneliness that already existed was amplified and deepened as non-contact activities became routine. People grew physically distant, leading to psychological distance as well. Even now, after the pandemic has ended, the vibrant in-person interactions of the past haven't fully returned, and loneliness remains deeply embedded in modern life. This loneliness manifests differently across generations. Among young people ages 19-34, many experience social isolation due to employment difficulties, academic stress, relationship challenges, and feelings of inadequacy for not meeting social expectations. Especially through social media, seeing others' seemingly happy lives triggers feelings of relative deprivation and the anxiety of falling behind in a fiercely competitive society deepens their loneliness. They easily become trapped in thoughts like, "Am I the only one struggling like this? Why am I like this when everyone else is doing fine?" Starting their social lives during this critical period, they struggle to form a healthy sense of self and identity. While they may be active in anonymous online communities, they fail to build deep relationships in real life, a phenomenon known as cyber isolation. This youth loneliness is increasingly recognized as a serious threat to the health of future society. Middle-aged adults ages 35-64 experience a different kind of loneliness. Cases of isolation due to job loss, business failure, family estrangement, and declining health are on the rise. Because they've served as the backbone of society, they're often overlooked by traditional welfare systems, and they're unaccustomed to revealing their struggles or asking for help, making isolation even more likely. As providers or family members bearing heavy responsibilities, they tend to endure suffering alone. The thought, "I don't want to show anyone my weakness," can ultimately lead to deep loneliness, anxiety about post-retirement life, and empty nest syndrome after children leave home. Further intensify loneliness. For this age group, for those whose workplace relationships formed a major part of their lives, the sudden disconnection after retirement can be profoundly painful. For the elderly 65 and older, loneliness becomes even more severe due to the loss of a spouse, declining health, economic hardship, and loss of social roles. Particularly striking is that elderly Koreans who say, "I have no one to help me in times of need," make up a proportion 3 times higher than the OECD average. As relationships with children become distant and friends pass away, they increasingly feel left behind and alone. Amid rapid social change, they feel alienated, as if their place in the world is disappearing. This loneliness is a major cause of rising depression and suicide rates among the elderly. While community centers and senior welfare facilities exist, many elderly people still live in isolation. Limited mobility and difficulty accessing information reduce opportunities for social participation, further deepening elderly loneliness. This pervasive loneliness throughout society brings numerous negative consequences for both individuals and society. On an individual level, it can trigger or worsen mental health issues like depression, anxiety, and even suicidal thoughts. It also has devastating effects on physical health, including sleep disorders, weakened immunity, and worsening chronic conditions. The fact that loneliness goes beyond emotional distress to seriously harm overall health is deeply troubling. Research shows that chronic loneliness is as harmful to health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. This is because loneliness increases stress hormones, triggers inflammatory responses, and raises the risk of cardiovascular disease, dementia, and more. Like physical pain, loneliness activates specific brain regions, registering as actual suffering. These biological mechanisms show that loneliness is far more than mere sadness. It's a serious health crisis. From a societal perspective, loneliness can lead to lonely deaths, social withdrawal, and even increased crime. Lonely deaths, in particular, combined with weakening safety nets and family breakdowns, have emerged as a grave social issue. The growing number of people dying alone and forgotten is a tragic reflection of our society. The fact that these individuals are completely cut off from society reveals just how many people our society is failing. Hikikomori refers to those who refuse social activity and remain confined at home, a phenomenon that wastes individual potential and drains societal vitality. Additionally, isolated individuals may make extreme choices or, driven by hostility toward society, turn to crime. Economically, loneliness leads to massive losses through reduced productivity and increased welfare costs. Lonely people struggle to actively participate in society, which ultimately harms the national economy. Rising medical costs from loneliness, falling productivity. These burdens fall on society as a whole, leading to inefficient allocation of social resources. So what can we do to solve this serious loneliness crisis? First, we must strengthen social networks. We need to support relationship building among members of society and establish social support systems where people can rely on one another in times of need. Supporting community activities at the local level, promoting volunteerism, and fostering social enterprises are all necessary efforts. For example, through small hobby groups or village cooperative projects, we can naturally increase opportunities for neighbors to connect. Beyond just providing spaces to meet, we must focus on building networks where people can offer real, practical help to one another. Using digital platforms to create communication channels linking online and offline interactions is also a great approach. Second, we must strengthen economic support. Economic hardship is a major cause of loneliness, so providing tangible help is essential. Policies supporting economic independence, like job creation, income support, and housing assistance, must be in place. Only when basic economic stability is guaranteed can people afford the bandwidth to form relationships with others. For young people, we must provide stable employment. For the middle-aged, expand re-employment education and programs. For the elderly, ensure stable retirement income. When economic anxiety is alleviated, individuals can more easily integrate into social networks. Third, we must expand psychological counseling and mental health services. For those experiencing loneliness, we must provide professional services, counseling, mental health, education, to help them escape loneliness and lead healthy lives. Special attention and support for vulnerable young people's mental health issues are crucial, helping them adapt to society and grow in healthy ways. Schools and workplaces should offer accessible counseling programs, and we must work to eliminate social stigma around mental health care. Activating online, non-face-to-face counseling services, so help is available anytime, is also important. Fourth, we must build systems to prevent lonely deaths. It's urgent to establish systems that detect and support at-risk groups early on. This requires encouraging community residents' interest and cooperation, and providing safety check services using IT technology. A multifaceted approach, using advanced technology to monitor the safety of those living alone and provide timely assistance, is essential. For instance, installing smart sensors in homes of elderly people living alone to monitor activity levels, or expanding visit-based care services with regular check-in calls. These are concrete measures we can take. Activating the honorary social welfare officer system, where neighbors look out for neighbors, is also crucial. Fifth, we must improve social awareness of loneliness. Loneliness is not a personal weakness or failure. We must eliminate social stigma around loneliness and cultivate a culture that accepts it as a natural human emotion, rather than hiding or feeling ashamed to say, "I'm alone." People should be able to speak honestly and ask for help. Through media and education, we must shed light on the many facets of loneliness and consistently convey the message that those experiencing loneliness are not alone. When the understanding spreads that loneliness is a universal emotion anyone can experience, people will gain the courage to face and overcome it in healthy ways. Sixth, government-level efforts are needed. Like the UK and Japan, we should establish dedicated departments to address loneliness and create comprehensive, national-level solutions. Loneliness is no longer just a personal problem, it's a social challenge that requires government action. For example, appointing a Minister of Loneliness to coordinate interministerial cooperation, securing budgets to tackle loneliness, and establishing and implementing long-term policies are all important steps. This would demonstrate the government's strong commitment to the issue and help build national consensus. Ultimately, while we are alone, we need social efforts to ensure that no one is left lonely in their solitude, because we live together, supporting and influencing one another. Loneliness may be an inevitable human emotion, but it must not be allowed to sicken us or sicken society. As Schopenhauer likened human relationships to the porcupine's dilemma, we are beings who, when too close, wound each other, and when too distant, feel lonely. What matters is finding that proper distance, understanding each other's quills, and showing consideration, rather than worrying about others' opinions. We need the wisdom to live our lives with autonomy, while still looking around us and reaching out when someone needs help. True courage means acknowledging loneliness and using it to strengthen ourselves, rather than denying the feeling of being alone. We must start by accepting and embracing it, and within that loneliness, we can reflect on ourselves, introspect, and cultivate inner strength. This time of self-reflection actually helps us understand ourselves more deeply and find healthy balance in our relationships with others. Through time alone, we discover our true selves and grow into independent beings, unswayed by external influences. Yet without complete disconnection, we must still make efforts to build healthy relationships. This doesn't mean one-sided dependence, but mature relationships built on mutual respect and understanding among friends, colleagues, family, neighbors. In all these varied relationships, we must maintain our boundaries while learning to communicate sincerely. Ultimately, we are alone, yet we are also beings who find comfort and growth through one another's existence. In this age of loneliness, I hope we can all become warm sources of comfort and steadfast support for one another. Are you, too, feeling alone right now? It's okay. You are not alone. We are living through this era together. We need the courage to accept the truth of being alone and the wisdom to seek connection with others from within that solitude. I'll see you next time with even better content. Thank you.